This is the Sunday stream opening song because the other song is copyrighted. La 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 la. Oh look, here comes Dog Cat Fox.
Hi, Sky.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Sunday stream. The stream I do on Sundays because Sunday is the day to stream on Sundays. Hope you're all doing well on this beautiful Sunday morning. It actually is quite nice out today. It was kind of overcast yesterday, which was comfortable for the sake of travel as I went off to see my mother and my father. Unfortunately, Sister Scribe was struck down by a migraine halfway through the visit, which wasn't fun, but she took some time to sleep it off, and I got to spend some time with my dad and my mama. And we made it there and back safely, so everything's fine now. Not everything goes perfect, but it went well. But elsewise, before we get into today's wonderful bevy of news, who's joining me on this beautiful Sunday morning? JB, good morning. Jill Powers, the River Daughter, good morning. And Noah Asensio, or the Alexandier, as it were. Yes, YouTube still hasn't fixed their chat issue with showing people's code names instead of their screen names. So if I fumble on any names today, I apologize. Old Guy Gamer, good morning. Walter Tomaszewski, good morning to you. Who else is here? Snortapoopas Cuber, good morning. And Advocatus Diaboli, hello, hello. Who else? Oh my gosh, so much going on before the stream even began. Mike Savage, blarg. Keeverdam is here, everybody, and thank you, Keeverdam, as always, for providing the links to the GoFundMes, the top of the chat box, guys, for our friends Twisted Skipster and Angela Arriaga. Twisted is raising money for his daughter's wrestling club, and Angela is starting her own home-based business. If you can take a look at those when you have the opportunity. If you can donate, please do so. But even if you can't, if you can share those out on social media, that would be appreciated. So thank you ahead of time for that. And thank you, Keeverdam, as always, for providing the links. Anybody else in the house? Morgan King, good evening. I'm stuck on it being like a nightly show or something. It's not. Good morning. Good morning. Or afternoon, depending on where you are. Shady Grin, hello. Mike R, good afternoon. I did it again. Good afternoon. What the heck? My brain is all over the place. Who knows? It is a time in the world at this moment. And I wish you a good time in the world at this moment. Kiro Soldier, to you I wish a good time in this moment. Resolute Germ, a good time in this moment. The Best Remy, a good time in this moment. Unfair Ophelia, I as well wish you a good time in this moment. Sabian187, hello. Robert Pincus, hello. The Blue-Eyed Scream, good morning. And John Triaxon, hello. Kirsten Scholl is over on the X Machine, everybody. If you happen to have an X account, you can find, presumably, this live stream over on X, because I'm simulcasting there. So if you see it there, please do retweet it. That'd be appreciated. And I think that's everybody. If I missed you, if you're lurking, if you're in the future, good time to you in this moment. So much happened this week that got overshadowed by, international things, which aren't unimportant or anything. But there are some other stories that popped up that I thought, worth a mention. And some of these stories might cross over into the Midnight's Edge entertainment news area, but I don't think we covered them. Or maybe we'll cover them tomorrow in some way. But I just thought, what the heck? They're on my mind now. So let's start off with the centerpiece of today's thumbnail, James Bond. And specifically, a pitch for James Bond that didn't go over so well. That I think should be at least the starting point for negotiating a reboot of the Bond franchise, which is taking place as we speak, as Denis Villeneuve has become the director of the next James Bond movie, which instills me with all sorts of sort of trepidation as a fan of the character. I kind of stopped watching Bond after Casino Royale. I gave whatever the one was right after that. Was that Quantum of Solace? Was Quantum of Solace the one right after Casino Royale, or was it Spectre? I think it was Quantum of Solace. I'm pretty sure it was either Quantum of Solace or it was Quantum of Substance. Anyway, Casino Royale was like the last good James Bond movie, and then it went to an absolute dip as far as I'm concerned. Daniel Craig, like I said, after Casino Royale, I never really bought him as Bond, and it became so emasculated and overblown and weepy, and Sam Smith opening theme song kind of ugh. Anyway, with the news that Denis Villeneuve is taking over for the next James Bond movie, and as well the sale of the property effectively to Amazon MGM outright from the Broccoli family, there was at one time apparently a pitch for an old school Bond. Make James Bond an alcoholic, a drug addict, he hates women. Matthew Goode's really dark 007 pitch got him dropped from Casino Royale auditions. Now, Matthew Goode, if you do not recognize him outright, he played Ozymandias in Watchmen. He was also in the star of the recent Netflix series that I watched and reviewed, called Department Q, where he plays Karl Mork. And for all my criticisms of that show, Matthew Goode is an excellent actor. And he would have made an excellent sort of classic throwback Bond. But apparently his pitch was too bad, too rough, even though it was much more accurate to the character. Matthew Goode recently appeared on the Happy, Sad, Confused podcast. Okay, I don't know what that is. And clarified rumors about him auditioning for James Bond. Before Daniel Craig was cast in 2006's Casino Royale, a handful of actors such as Henry Cavill, Rupert Friend, and Sam Worthington all went out for the part. But Goode, a relative newcomer at the time with credits like the Mandy Moore rom-com Chasing Liberty and Woody Allen's Match Point under his belt, never got to actually audition because he bombed his meeting with 007 franchise producer Barbara Broccoli. Quote, I didn't audition. I went in and met Barbara Broccoli, Goode said. It was quite a funny one because, and she's gorgeous, and she's just a lovely, lovely person. She was like, so what's your idea for Bond? And I was like, my idea for Bond. We've got to take it back to the books, you know? Really, we absolutely have to make this guy an alcoholic, a drug addict. He hates himself. He hates women. He hates a lot of people. He's in deep pain. He's brilliant at killing people. Goode continued, I think by the end of the interview, she was like, next. I wanted to make it really dark, but what I should have said was, but also incredibly charming, unquote. Cavill did make it into the audition room. You mean make it into the audition room? Variety? Okay. Cavill did make into the audition room, but was considered too young to play the role. Craig was ultimately chosen, kickstarting a new Bond era on the big screen that would reach an all-time franchise high with 2012's Skyfall, $1.1 billion grossed worldwide. Craig exited 007 in 2021's No Time to Die. Well, exited is kind of being mild. They blew up James Bond. Like, literally, they bombed him. But anyway, Broccoli and co-producer Michael G. Wilson are no longer running the Bond franchise after they sold creative rights to Amazon MGM Studios earlier this year. Amazon recently announced that Denis Villeneuve will direct the next 007 movie, although no actor is currently attached to play Bond. Although they have a wish list. And on that top 3 wish list apparently is Tom Holland, because, yeah, sure, cast Spider-Man and an actor that looks like a teenager. He's got a perpetual baby face. To his credit, you know, he's probably going to be forever young, as it were. But he doesn't look like James. James Bond has to look like he's a bit world-weary. And if you're casting young James Bond Jr., I still wouldn't cast Tom Holland. But anyway, in a new report from Variety, insiders said that Amazon is seeking a British actor under the age of 30 to assume the 007 mantle. Per the report, quote, Jacob Elordi, Tom Holland, and Harris Dickinson are at the top of the list. Elordi is Australian, but that would not be a deal breaker as far as Amazon is concerned. Remember, Aussie George Lazenby starred in On Her Majesty's Secret Service. Which, admittedly, I have a sort of guilty pleasure for On Her Majesty's Secret Service because Lazenby's portrayal was more true to the book Bond. And as far as I'm concerned, the theme music to On Her Majesty's Secret Service is the best Bond theme. There are other catchy songs, sure, like Goldfinger, You Only Live Twice, I get it. But the orchestral theme of On Her Majesty's Secret Service, I think, is the best Bond theme of all Bond themes. That's my opinion. And you cannot break it. But yeah, so an actual, like, dark, gritty, not nice person who is a effective spy and assassin for the British Empire. Can you imagine this person might not be fun-loving and perfect? I can. One of my favorite Bond books, and again, this is kind of a guilty pleasure kind of thing, because it was the first book on tape I ever owned as a child. It was in the bargain bin at one of those department stores. And they had all these cassette tape things. And right there on the top, it was sort of like green lettering, and it had this weird, like, demonic face up in the corner, and it said, "No Deals, Mr. Bond," by John Gardner. And man, I think I wore out that book. I wore out those tapes. I listened to that so many times. It's your basic Bond intrigue story where he's got to, like, save women in distress, and he's shooting at bad guys, and he's going internationally, and he gets caught by some nefarious international bad guys, and he gets strapped to a table. He's going to be interrogated. Then he has to go on, like, this game of survival on an island in the dark at night, and he's got no weapons. He's got people chasing him. Oh man, it's great. It's great. Why don't they make a movie out of that? No Deals, Mr. Bond. It's a quick read. And the guy who does the voice work for the audiobook, perfect. Absolutely perfect. He's no David Ogden Stiers for the Tom Clancy books, but I forget what the guy's name is, but he did a great job. Anyway, yeah, a darker, classic, rough-edged, mean, not nice James Bond, I think, is what we need again. And yes, there has to be a level best layer of charm to the guy. That sort of sociopathic charisma. But anyway, so I feel kind of bad for Matthew Goode that he didn't have a shot to play a more classic, sort of svelte, elegant Bond. But now we're going for Tom Holland, I guess. Anyway, so there you go. There's our James Bond story. Walter Tomaszewski. I love the theme to Diamonds Are Forever. Oh no, there are lots and lots of great Bond themes and songs and catchy things that just, like, get caught in your head. But I think as a lyricless theme, like an actual, like, orchestral theme for Bond, On Her Majesty's Secret Service is the best song. Because if you listen to that, you immediately think James Bond. There's something about the bits and pieces in there that are just, yeah, that's perfectly James Bond. Let's see. K. Roberts, Bond is traveled Navy commander turned ministry agent, capable skills, expendable to administration executives. Yeah, and he knows it. That's the thing. The mentality that would take to know that you are a disposable hero and do the things that your government's asking you to do while also trying to, like, quote unquote, enjoy yourself, and the contradictions and conflicts that would cause in somebody while still being able to function. Yeah, there's a darker, grittier Bond just waiting to be made. I don't trust Denis Villeneuve to make it, especially with the actors they're looking for, but I don't know. I guess we'll see. Time will tell. Darren Root, so they didn't get the basic concept. Well, Barbara Broccoli was the wrong person to pitch a gritty, sort of quote-unquote toxic masculine Bond to, because she wants a neutered Bond. She wants a Bond with his balls clipped, which is what she eventually got with Daniel Craig by the end of his run. So, JB, the name's Bond, Muhammad Bond. I remember James Bond Jr. Everybody remembers James Bond Jr. Do. Oh man, that was a cheesy cartoon, but a great cartoon. Kiro Soldier, thank you so much. So Christopher Lee being his legendary self, as far as a villain or as far as, like, an actual, well, yeah, if you cast young Christopher Lee to play James Bond exactly. Exactly. Man, and with AI, they could probably do it these days. It's like, generate for me a late 20s, early 30s something Christopher Lee in a James Bond film. I mean, give it another 6 months and some Microsoft or Google or Chinese knockoff AI system will be able to do that for you pretty quick. But yeah, no, Christopher Lee, model James Bond. Yeah, if only. Oh man, can you imagine? I mean, he eventually played Scaramanga, so he was in a James Bond movie, but he should have been Bond, shouldn't he? Speaking of which, Jill Powers of River Dog. My brain wants to read your tag name, but then I want to say your actual quote unquote name. The Man with the Golden Gun is great camp. Lulu sang the theme song. Yes. I love so much about the classic James Bond movies. I used to watch them all the time as a kid when they reran on TBS, when they'd have their James Bond marathons. Oh, and View to a Kill. Man, you want to talk about a great theme song. View to a Kill is great. Meeting you was a view to a kill. Oh man, and the music video for that is still great. I love the part where they have the tourist like binoculars and they're looking around and suddenly turns into a machine gun or whatever. It's so good. Oh man, those were the days. Those were the days. Juliet, Bond is between 35 and 42, retired commander of the Navy, and has books apparently. And has the books apparently. He was not blonde. He was blonde, blue-eyed, between 5'8" and 6. Yeah, there's like one. There's one official image of James Bond that Ian Fleming actually endorsed. And he's like this slick-backed hair. He's got a scar on his face. He's very dapper, relatively, thin, I guess is what you'd call it, but sort of like svelte, I suppose. And yeah, he was blondish. So yeah, the blonde Bond thing, but of course Sean Connery kind of set the template, and I've always imagined Bond as this sort of like raven-haired, widow-peaked kind of agent, classic sort of thin man kind of deal. But anyway, so there you go. There's our James Bond story. But beyond James Bond, you guys remember Kamala Harris? I remember Kamala Harris. Pepperidge Farm remembers Kamala Harris. Well, Kamala Harris is she wants, I guess, to run for governor. And when I say I guess, I think that's kind of her mentality too, because she's kind of gone back and forth like, well, do I want to run for governor of California? Do I want to run for president 2028? I'm not sure, It's kind of, this indecision really makes me as a theoretical, not literal, voter, really, really certain about her dedication to what she wants to do and how she wants to do it. But I guess she's leaning more towards California governor now. Unfortunately, if you can believe it, after being handed at the conservative estimate, $1.5 billion war chest to run for president, failing utterly, and being in debt by the end of the campaign, Kamala Harris is having trouble finding fundraising. Kamala Harris governor run threatened by donors' cold feet. And why would donors have cold feet, might you ask? Donors do not want Kamala Harris to run for California governor over fears her presidential election loss makes her a liability to the Democrats. In a way, I kind of want her to run, and I kind of want her to be the candidate, because that would give California the best chance to finally, after so many decades, maybe have a change in philosophy running that state. Given how the Democrats have just made it into an absolute paradise. But anyway, the former presidential candidate, well, I mean, she's now twice a former presidential candidate, is considering whether to launch a bid to replace Gavin Newsom as governor when his term ends next year, relying on the advice of her closest allies as she weighs up the decision. But Golden State donors have warned her campaign would be a, quote, traumatizing reminder of last year's election. Now, Kamala Harris is a walking traumatic reminder of not only last year's election, but the entirety of the Biden administration and her initial failure at running for president the first time around back in 2019. She's just a walking reminder of just failure. I don't know what to tell you. One Democrat who donated 6 figures to her campaign said, quote, Kamala just reminds you we are in this complete shitstorm. With Biden, we got bamboozled. No, you didn't get you bamboozled yourselves. Everything you needed to know about Biden was right there in 2019 and 2020. You guys closed your eyes, held your nose, and wrote checks. Don't play victim. Okay? Anybody with half a brain and functioning eyes and ears during that period of time, even before the election in 2020, you knew. You just decided to ignore it. With Biden, we got bamboozled. I think she did the best she could in that situation. Okay, if that's the best she could do in that situation, go back to her interview with Lester Holt. Tell me if that's the best she could do, then that's not great. But obviously she knew about the cognitive decline too, Politico reported. You don't say. And guess what, Politico? You did too. Again, you ignored it. With Biden, we got bamboozled. Quote, I've written so many checks because I knew the Trump administration would be horrible. Yeah, look how horrible it is, guys. Resolving wars, crippling, if not ending, depending on who's saying the story right now, Iran's nuclear aspirations. The economy has not gone into the toilet. Not that it couldn't, but it hasn't yet. And illegal immigration brought down to practically nothing. Yeah, boy, it's horrible. I've written so many checks because I knew the Trump administration would be horrible, but we're living in a nightmare because of the Democrats. I'm furious at them, truly. Who was writing the checks? Stop for a second. Who was enabling these guys? You know, you ever watch the show Intervention? You know how frustrating it is, and sort of on a human level kind of understanding at the same time, to watch a family enable someone to destroy not only their life, but the lives of the people around them because they love them, you know, killing them with kindness. Okay, you funded the nightmare. You said, I've written so many checks. You funded the nightmare. Okay, your blind partisanship funded the nightmare you live in. Without any nuance, any discretion whatsoever, you said, I'm not voting for Trump. It's going to be terrible. I'm going to keep giving money to the idiots. Well, you get what you pay for. Miss Harris, 60, has kept a low profile since leaving Washington, D.C. in January and returning to California. She has a holiday plan for July. Holiday from what? She doesn't do anything. Holiday plan for July, and allies hope she will make a decision about whether to run by late summer. Okay, if I were a Californian voter, and I heard that someone who was going to run for governor at this late date wasn't sure if she wanted to still, again, if she's not committed to the idea of running the state, if she's not passionate about solving problems for Californians to the point where she's willing to fight and that is her focus, why would I have any confidence in her doing a good job if she's just kind of like, I don't know. I'm not sure if I want to. One of those, this is a phrase I've used a few times that confuses, depending if you don't have the context. If there is any doubt, there is no doubt. In the sense of, like, think of like a tattoo. Like if you go to the tattoo artist and you get a tattoo thing sort of laid out on your arm and you're looking at it and you're not sure if you should get it, then the decision is already made. If there is any doubt, there is no doubt. So in a situation like that, no, I'm not sure, so obviously the answer is no. In a situation like at this, again, we're barely less than a year out from when the election's going to start. If you're not sure if you want to be California governor by now, the answer is don't. For everybody's sake, just don't run. She was criticized for rubbing shoulders with A-list stars at the Met Gala last month after her campaign spent $1 billion in 3 months including on a string of celebrity performances. It was more than $1 billion. I think it was like 1.5. I hear it might have been as much as 2 after all is accounted for, especially with the debt she still owed after the fact. Ms. Harris is said to be deciding whether to enter the gubernatorial race, run for president in 2028, or explore positions outside of elected office. Could she get a job at McDonald's at this point? Would even McDonald's hire her? One California fundraiser told Politico that donors believe Ms. Harris's campaign would, quote, bring up the whole pathetic last presidential race, which no one wants to hear about again. And then it's the whole, did you know Joe Biden thing? Yeah, and that's something that still needs to be adjudicated. Has anybody yet... or are there any plans to prosecute anyone for effectively staging a coup in this country by running the executive branch beyond the abilities and mental competency of the elected president? I mean, I hear plenty of people complaining about it, and everybody is right to complain about it, but are any consequences oncoming for that? Because if they're not, then it really doesn't matter, does it? But that aside, yes, Kamala Harris will never escape her record of failure. Never. So her considering running for California governor in the first place is stupid. But then the citizens of California have been known on regular occasion to make stupid decisions when it comes to who they elect to office. So she might actually win. Quote, she still would probably lead, but honestly, no one is incredibly pumped. Well, it would depend then on who her opponent would be. Quote, there was more enthusiasm at first. Mather Martin, a San Francisco-based fundraiser who has worked on Ms. Harris's campaigns before, said, quote, I think it waned a bit. A bit? Okay. Ms. Harris's allies are said to be assured Democrats would coalesce around her. Yeah, sort of like a blood clot. They also note that she has advantages over the other contenders, including a being a recognized name and the ability to fundraise. And recognized with an S. See, and I understand there's different spellings for certain words across language barriers and stuff, but isn't recognized a Z in American parlance? I could be mistaken, but my brain says that should be a Z. Anyway, Christopher Galdieri, politics professor at St. Anselm, said while some California Democrats might be unenthused by the possibility of Ms. Harris running, he does not think that will stop them from donating to her campaign. Of course not, because they have no other choice. We can't let the Trump-backed avatar win. We have to support Democrats no matter what, even if the candidate is a proven loser. And that's the same mentality that has put California into the situation it is in. Because you're just like, I'm still going to enable. I'm still going to pay for the drug addict's drugs. I'm just going to keep doing it because I have no other choice. I have one slot. There's only one option. I have no nuance or leverage. I can't make a better decision. I have to stick to the tribe no matter what. Quote, I don't know that those donors are saying that they wouldn't write checks if it came down to it, especially if you have a situation where a, heavyweight candidate enters the race, is favored to get nominated, favored to win the election, he told The Telegraph. Well, that was a very articulate statement, thank you. He added, quote, I think those donors would figure out how to get over it and write checks quickly just because, in a purely instrumental sense, do you want to be the big-name Democratic donor who didn't write a check for the incoming governor of the state, unquote? If they're going to be stupid, if they're already a proven loser, yeah, I think I'd want to be the guy who didn't put my money or my name behind them. But, again, we're not talking about sense here. We're talking about tribal loyalty. The GOP is said to be keen to face off against Ms. Harris again, with more contenders poised to jump into the race were she to declare. The Republican machine would have ample material to attack the former vice president with, in light of the damning allegations in the book Original Sin by Jake Tapper and Alex Thompson. Yes, the book of duh. A book nobody needed, but that Jake Tapper, of all people, I hope he hasn't made a profit off of that, honestly. I really don't. Profiting off of his own collusion in playing coverage for Joe Biden. It's just... I really hope everybody who's bought that book were just like allies of his who were buying it in bulk, and that nobody really bought that book. They just had to like watch Biden's performance over the last 6 years. Anyway, which claimed that Mr. Biden's inner circle shielded the public from the extent of his decline while serving as president. Well, that's true. And of course, Jake Tapper has to sort of like, yeah, well, I might have been part of that. I have apologized, kind of, but, you know, I never gave it any real thought. Also, our favorite friend at CNN, Chris Cillizza, was part of that, too. Mr. Biden said the allegations were wrong, and there's nothing to sustain them, aside from your lying eyes. Antonio Villaraigosa, a Democrat who is running for governor, has accused Ms. Harris of being complicit in masking the reality of Mr. Biden's decline. I think that's made plain. You know, self-evident is the words I would use. Her collusion, being complicit in the cover-up, is self-evident. But there you go. Yeah, Kamala Harris, donation poison. I really hope she does run for governor of California. I really do. It'll be entertaining as all heck to watch. My prediction is she won't. I'll be happy to be proven wrong, but I think when it comes down dollars to donuts, rubber meets the road, I think she's going to sit right on the edge, and then sometime in the next 2 or 3 months, she's going to decide to focus her attention on... I mean, a 2028 run would be ridiculous, too. You know what she'd be better off doing? And I said this before. If she wants to go the easy route, the non-controversial route, if she wants to fade into silence and financial security, she takes an honorary or otherwise functional professorship job at... what college did she come from? Oh, I suddenly forget. Anyway, you know, the HBCU she was so proud of and that she was going to hold her big celebration rally at. Just take a professorship there, do speaking tour stuff for the people that'll still give you money, that'd rather give it to you than Biden, and just live off of that the rest of your life. Howard, yes, thank you, Jill Powers. Howard University, yeah. Yeah, Howard University would be just enthralled to have her there as a professor, as a law professor. I mean, she is a lawyer, right? She could teach law. Probably not well. But that would be my advice for Kamala Harris. Just take the easy paycheck, live the rest of your life in relative security and without the scrutiny of trying to recreate a political life for yourself. It's over, it's done with. But for entertainment value, I really do hope she runs for governor. Or president. I mean, if she ran for president again, that'd also be entertaining. But I think governor would be far more interesting. Ames says jaundice. Okay. I mean, it's a thing. Also, TC. Wait, is that TC? All right, here's my problem, guys. Sometimes now I recognize avatars, so I know this is a regular, but then I look at the name and it throws my brain off. Who is that? Who are you? Identify yourself. YouTube, fix this problem. I don't recognize anybody anymore. It's like I've got aphasia or something. I can see your face. I just can't remember who you are. It is TC. Okay, good. Because I didn't want to say moist tree rat. Threw me completely off. Like, moist tree rat. What? And M. Herndon. Kamala in charge of California? Is the state screwed enough? Well, I mean, again, California is the way that it is because the voters of this state will not change their minds. They are locked in. It is an ideological certainty. We must vote for the Democrat. We cannot vote for a Republican. Republican evil, Democrat good, no matter what. And that kind of thinking led to the Palisades turning into a cinder. The streets still being, run over by protesters, rioters, poop in the streets, homeless people everywhere, decline, businesses leaving, everybody, the exodus to Texas and elsewise. Yeah, California's great, guys. I miss being Uncle Mikey. Well, at this point, I only know you as a parrot named M. Herndon. I'm sorry, this is YouTube's fault. This is not my fault. Take it up with YouTube. Many people have. Also, Darren Root. This is why I kept the names the same. Yeah, well, some people have like a name they settle on in their code name. I understand. But anyway, moving on to well-known names. There's a segue. How about Diddy? I haven't actually been paying all that much attention to the Diddy trial. I paid particular attention to the Karen Reed trial going on. That was at first it was televised, unlike the Diddy trial. So I'm just kind of like waiting to see the results. But I guess we've reached the point where both sides have given their closing statements, and now it's gone to the jury, or soon will go to the jury. But Diddy trial reaches explosive conclusion as defense asked jury to, quote, summon that courage to acquit Sean Combs. On the final day of the Sean Diddy Combs trial before jury deliberations, the hip-hop mogul's attorney, Mark Agnifilio, enlivened the courtroom with an impassioned closing argument. In the coming days, the jury will determine whether Combs is guilty of sex trafficking, racketeering, and transportation to engage in prostitution. A conviction could land him behind bars for life. Oh boy, guys. Thug life for life. Thank you, Kiro Soldier. California is the definition of insanity. Very good point. And New York, New York City in particular, is well on its way to becoming California 2 socialistic boogaloo. But that's a story for another day. Thank you, Kiro Soldier. Agnifilio's demeanor was animated and at times folksy, unlike the prosecution's cold, formal tone during its closing argument on Thursday. He paced around the courtroom, beginning his summations by extolling Combs' character and business acumen, stating that he was a champion of diversity. Oh, well, I mean, if he's a champion of diversity, he's got my vote. Quote, Sean Combs has become something that is very, very hard to be, Agnifilio said. Quote, he is a self-made, successful black entrepreneur. Unquote. He recounted some of the positive things Combs' former employees said about him on the witness stand, adding, quote, did they always like him? No way. Let's not even go there. But they loved him. They didn't want to leave him, unquote. Yeah, because they were profiting off of him. He was a money machine, for better or worse, and I assume probably worse. He was a money machine. Of course, they hated him, but man, he kept bringing in the bucks. And here's the thing, and this kind of echoes back to something I said during this week's TED Excellence. Let's go over what the attorney just said. Self-made, successful black entrepreneur. What does any of that say about his character? All right. I mean, you could say, well, he has a really great work ethic. Okay, I mean, possibly so. Possibly so. Does that mean he's a good person? Does that mean he's done good things? Or does that mean that he is somehow indemnified from doing bad things? No. It says nothing. It's neutral. The defense put a spotlight on the presence of Combs' children and mother in the courtroom, saying, quote, the man takes care of people, unquote. Taking a swipe at one of Combs' alleged victims, Jane, Agnifilio said, quote, I hope she's having a nice day, but you know where she's doing it? In a house he's paying for, unquote. Again, does that somehow mean she's lying? Was that a payoff to keep her quiet? I mean, I don't know. When do we get to the refuting the evidence that's been presented by the prosecution? Agnifilo argued that Combs is on a false trial, that he is not guilty of sex trafficking, but is instead a member of, quote, the swingers lifestyle who participated in consensual threesomes with his ex-girlfriends and male entertainers. Quote, no one's forcing her to do this, Agnifilo said of Cassandra Cassie Ventura, Combs' ex, who accused him of raping her and coercing her into hundreds of freak-offs, drug-fueled sex parties that lasted days on end. At the center of the trial is a 2016 surveillance video that depicts Combs beating Ventura in a hotel hallway and allegedly attempting to drag her back into a, quote, freak-off, unquote. Quote, we own the domestic violence, Agnifilo said. Does he have domestic violence as part of his charges in this case? Because I guess they just sort of ceded that one. Okay. Throughout the trial, the defense has admitted that Combs was violent with Ventura, but that the violence was not connected to the freak-offs. Oh, well, I mean, then I guess that's okay. And I'm being sincere here. I don't know. Has Sean Diddy Combs been previously prosecuted for domestic violence in this situation, separate from this trial? Because if he hasn't, then he's effectively confessing. Agnifilo painted Ventura as a strong, smart woman who enjoyed her sex life with Combs. Quote, she's a woman who actually likes sex. Agnifilo said, good for her. She's beautiful. She should. She's intense. She's unafraid. This is some bizarre closing remarks. She's a woman who actually likes sex. You know, unlike 75% of rest of women that don't, I guess. Agnifilo referenced Ventura's testimony about her brief love affair with the rapper Scott Mescudi, a.k.a. Kid Cudi. Ventura said she tried to keep her relationship with Mescudi a secret from Combs by purchasing a second cell phone. Whoa, a burner phone, Agnifilo said, his voice jumping up an octave. Quote, Cassie is keeping it gangsta, unquote. That's something that the defense lawyer said in open court to the jury. Quote, Cassie is keeping it gangsta, unquote. He said Ventura played both Combs and Mescudi, implying she would not have had a secret relationship if she was actually, quote, scared to death of Sean Combs, unquote. Unless she was looking for protection and support elsewhere. But I don't know. Addressing the kidnapping allegations against Combs, which pertain to his racketeering charge, Agnifilo referenced former assistant Capricorn Clark's claim. Capricorn Clark sounds like a comic book name. Like that's the secret identity of some superhero, Capricorn Clark. Hold on a second. Like Capricorn Clark, like if you were the superhero, the Goat, or something, and your name was Capricorn Clark, that seems like that would fit. I don't know. Capricorn Clark's claim that she was held for 5 days in a Manhattan office building and forced to take a lie detector test about stolen jewelry. Quote, a door-to-door kidnap, Agnifilo said mockingly, emphasizing that Clark slept at home and that one of Combs' security guards drove her to and from the building each day. Quote, you guys are here for long hours, he told the jury. Anyone here feel kidnapped, unquote? Yeah, you know, if the security guards for the guy who is controlling my life are the ones that are making sure I am shuttled from point A to point B every day, I'm sure that doesn't potentially feel like I'm being controlled or held captive. I'm not even on the jury, but I'm just sitting here going like, I mean, I could see it going either way there. But I guess that technically means reasonable doubt. Agnifilio's tone was incredulous. He's charged with kidnapping. That's real, unquote. And he told the jurors they, quote, have the right to question the government's claims and disregard witness testimony. Well, they can. The lawyer picked apart the allegations of bribery, witness tampering, and obstruction, and focused heavily on the implication that Combs orchestrated an act of arson on Mescudi's car. Combs had allegedly said previously that he was going to blow up the vehicle, but an investigation at the time found no evidence linking Combs. Okay. Quote, "That's not his style," Agnifilo said, suggesting that Combs would prefer a man-to-man confrontation with Muscudi, quote, "a good old-fashioned John Wayne 8 in the morning Hollywood Hills fight," unquote. Okay, if that's a reference to something that actually happened with John, I'm thinking like, if you're talking about like high noon? John Wayne 8 in the morning Hollywood Hills fight. Admittedly, I am not an expert on John Wayne history. Did he have fist fights at 8 in the morning in the Hollywood Hills? Throughout the closing argument, Combs nodded and listened intently, either leaning back in his chair or crossing his arms on the table. In the morning, one of his sons, Justin Combs, was wearing a shirt that read, quote, "Free Sean Combs," unquote. I don't believe that for a second. Sean Combs would monetize himself in some way. Anyway, which is not permitted in the courtroom. A court marshal approached him, and Justin left and re-entered the room without the message visible. Probably just turned the shirt inside out. Agnifilo was theatrical in his summation, no kidding, and often used sarcasm to drive home his arguments. Always a good way to win over the jury. He used a mocking tone when describing the raids on Combs' property, saying they made America, quote, "safe from Astroglide," unquote. Quote, "Way to go, fellas. You guys just do you. They took Astroglide and baby oil, and that's the evidence in this case," he said. When poo-pooing the drug distribution racketeering charges, Agnifilo admitted, quote, "There's no question Combs had a drug problem, but that his drugs were for personal use only and not part of a criminal enterprise. That when his staff picked up and delivered drugs like Xanax and ecstasy to Combs, they were not aware they were committing crimes. They were just carrying out personal assistant duties, as is common in the entertainment industry. Quote, "I don't suppose we'll see Beyonce at CVS," Agnifilo said. Boy, howdy, this lawyer is something else. Addressing the racketeering charges, the attorney said there is a, quote, "gaping lack of evidence," unquote. Okay, and with respect to the transportation to engage in prostitution charges, he repeated the defense's stance that Combs paid male escorts for their time, not for sex. I swear, guys, that male prostitute over there who I just gave money to, I just wanted his time, because, as a self-made, rich and famous black entrepreneur, I just need that guy's advice on some business tips. That's all. Just looking for some insight. Wrapping things up, Agnifilo leveled with the jury. Quote, "It takes a lot of courage to acquit," he said. He said the concept of a jury is one of the great things about America, and that it is a difficult thing for a juror to rule against the federal prosecutors. Quote, "You guys are the United States of America," he said, raising his voice. "You should feel bold. You should feel the courage that you will need to call this as you see it, and I am asking you to summon that courage and do what needs to be done, and to do the right thing," unquote. He asked the jurors to acquit his client on all charges. Quote, "He sits there innocent. Return him to his family, who have been waiting for him," unquote. Beginning her brief rebuttal, which is the last time the jurors will hear from the attorneys after 7 grueling weeks of trial, prosecutor Maureen Comey sighed, quote, "We're almost done," unquote. Comey delivered her most fiery remarks yet, taking the baton after her fellow prosecutor, Christy Slavic, delivered a 5-hour closing argument on Thursday. She laid into the defense, saying the notion that the male escorts were not paid for sex, quote, "doesn't even pass the laugh test," unquote. When Combs handed them wads of cash at the end of freak-offs, it wasn't for their scintillating conversation, Comey said. She referred to an escort's testimony that supported her argument. Despite what the defense posited, the escorts did not need to label themselves as prostitutes for their conduct to be considered prostitution. How long does this go on? Holy cats, all right, we're almost done. Supporting the racketeering charge, Comey listed a handful of alleged crimes carried out by Combs' employees on his behalf. Quote, "This is a guy who cannot get his own water bottle or plug in his own phone charger," she said, implying that of course he would not commit his own crimes. Quote, "He's the general, not a foot soldier, not a lieutenant. He delegated, and his inner circle did the dirty work for him," Comey added, pointing to his chief of staff, Christina Coram, as his primary alleged co-conspirator. Concerning the drug distribution charges, Comey said, quote, "There is no requirement that drugs be distributed for profit or in large quantities to be illegal," unquote. In other words, Combs handing ecstasy pills to Ventura and Jane would still be considered distribution under the law. The tone of her rebuttal intensified as Comey addressed the defense's underlying argument that Ventura, another rape accuser, Mia, and Jane are lying. She explored each alleged victim's incentives to commit perjury. Ventura already won a $20 million settlement against Combs, so there's no money grab there. Mia similarly already settled with Combs, and she testified under a pseudonym, meaning she isn't seeking fame or attention. And Jane, who never sued Combs and has no plans to, testified that the defendant continues to pay her rent and legal fees. For that reason, if she had any incentive to lie, it would be in favor of Combs, Comey argued. I guess she's not wrong. I still find it absolutely bizarre that you would accept continued support from someone who brutalized you, but I don't understand people. Since opening arguments back in May, good God, it's been going on a while, the defense has painted Combs' accusers as strong women with agency. Quote, "You know what? They're right about that," Comey said. "They were strong enough to survive what the defendant put them through and testify at this trial," unquote. Comey returned to what she called, quote, "the most clear-cut example of sex trafficking in this case," unquote, when, in June 2024, Combs allegedly violently attacked Jane before giving her drugs and arranging a freak-off with a male escort. Quote, "Is this coercion?" unquote, Combs allegedly said to Jane, mocking the federal investigation looming over him. The trial reached an explosive climax as Comey rested her rebuttal. Quote, "For 20 years, the defendant got away with his crimes. That ends in this courtroom," she said. Quote, "The defendant is not a god. He is a person, and in this courtroom he stands equal before the law. Overwhelming evidence proves his guilt. It is time to find him, it is time to hold him accountable. Find him guilty," unquote. The jury could make its decision as early as next week. Could, yes. It's possible. Holy cats. Well, there you go, guys. In summation, I'll use a legal term, that is where the Sean Diddy Combs case is right now. You have his defense team going like, it's all BS. Nothing. Hey, he's a businessman. He makes people rich. Obviously, he wouldn't do something as silly as this. JB, sex trafficking. People aren't cars, Your Honor. But, what about My Mother the Car? What about Automan? JB, are you forgetting Automan? Who could forget Automan? Most of you in the chat have no idea what I'm talking about, do you? Especially My Mother the Car. You don't remember that one, do you? I don't remember that one either. I just know that it exists. I think it was a joke in a Mad magazine I saw when I was a kid, and I just remember that there was a show called My Mother the Car. Oh, well, JB knows about Automan. Brian Morissette knows about Automan. Okay, anybody else here know about Automan? Say it loud, say it proud. You know about Automan. Desi Arnaz Jr., yes, very good. Very good, Faustonia, yes. All right, well, there's your legal news, but we're not done with legal news because, boy howdy, when the Supreme Court decision came out the other day, I skimmed through it. Like, it was so weird. I saw a story saying the Supreme Court is going to make some big decisions today. And I was like, oh. And so I clicked over to the Supreme Court website where they post all their decisions. I must have timed it perfectly because the decision regarding the birthright citizenship was right there. They must have posted it like at the very second I clicked on the page because nobody had talked about it at that point. They were still saying they were waiting for the decision to post. And so I think I started reading it the moment it appeared. And I scrolled through it and I was looking for the decision on this, that, and the other. And I kept seeing little bits and pieces about, judges should not have universal injunctions and so on. And then I got down to Amy Coney Barrett's contribution. And she just went off on Ketanji. She just went off. And I was like, whoa, because it is not usual for justices to directly address other justices' opinions and stuff, at least not as stridently as I was seeing here. So This was something else. Amy Coney Barrett rips Ketanji Brown Jackson over dissent in birthright citizenship case. Conservative Supreme Court Justice Amy Coney Barrett stunned veteran bench watchers Friday with a blunt takedown of liberal Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson's, quote, extreme dissent in the landmark birthright citizenship case in which the Supreme Court curtailed lower court use of universal injunctions. Quote, we will not dwell on Justice Jackson's argument, which is at odds with more than 2 centuries worth of precedent, not to mention the Constitution itself, unquote, wrote Barrett, the court's second newest justice, in a jaw-dropping rebuke of her colleague, the newest justice. Quote, we observe only this. Justice Jackson decries an imperial executive while embracing an imperial judiciary, unquote. Ooh. Barrett had authored the majority opinion in the case, the most consequential on the docket this term, which gave President Trump a major win by limiting the power of district judges to block his actions. Okay, I know I'm being a little pedantic here when I do this, but I'm a little irritated by the media's constant framing of this as either the Supreme Court sided with empowering Trump or that gave Trump a win. Now, what's happened to Trump, at least, judicially and everything, is more of a test between the balance of power between the judiciary and the executive that needed to be clarified. Because the fact that these district court judges have been able to impede executive moves for so long, and they had the same power under Biden. I mean, they could have and have been doing this in different ways, just not to the degree that they've done it against Trump. This needed to be settled not just for Trump, but for the function of our government writ large now and into the future. So when people talk about this with such blinders on as this is the Supreme Court empowering Trump, it's like, no, they're depowering, or at least clarifying, if it needed to be done, the limits of judiciary power when opposing the president or the executive branch writ large. It's a little annoyance, pet peeve, but either way, let's move on. Liberal Justice Sonia Sotomayor penned the main dissent for the left flank of the High Court, which Jackson joined. Scrolling up. But Jackson also wrote a concurring dissent that featured a heavy fixation on the potential practical ramifications of the 6-3 decision, rather than grounding her argument in legal theory. Yes, because you're only a Supreme Court justice. Grounding your argumentation in the law is an option. Quote, it is not difficult to predict how this all ends. Eventually, executive power will become completely uncontainable, and our beloved constitutional republic will be no more, Jackson dramatically fretted at one point. Quote, quite unlike a rule of kings governing system, in a rule of law regime, nearly every act of government may be challenged by an appeal to law, Jackson wrote elsewhere. Quote, at the very least, I lament that the majority is so caught up in the minutiae of the government's self-serving, finger-pointing arguments that it misses the plot, unquote. Jackson even went so far as to dismiss the question of whether universal injunctions were provided for by the Judiciary Act of 1789 as legalese that, quote, obscures a far more basic question of enormous legal and practical significance. May a federal court in the United States of America order the executive to follow the law, unquote. Barrett's response, in her opinion, was almost mocking. Quote, because analyzing the governing statute involves boring legalese, Jackson seeks to answer a far more basic question of enormous practical significance. May a federal court in the United States of America order the executive to follow the law? In other words, it is unnecessary to consider whether Congress has constrained the judiciary. What matters is how the judiciary may constrain the executive. Justice Jackson would do well to heed her own admonition. Quote, everyone, from the president on down, is bound by law, Barrett continued. That goes for judges too. If you want to constrain the executive, that's up to Congress. Congress needs to do that. And I've talked about this before. I'm not a fan of the amount of power invested in the executive. But who invested that power in the executive? Promulgated over decades. Congress. They have ceded authority to the executive in so many ways. executive orders, so many other things the president can do, and Congress laments these things. It doesn't matter which president is in office. Oh, Obama did DACA. He exceeded the rule of law. Probably, but who allowed him to do it? Trump, he exceeded the rule of law, the Democrats shout. Yeah, probably, but who allowed him to do that? And whose job is it to constrain the executive? Congress. But they don't want to constrain the executive. They want to kick the can down the road. They want to have the judiciary curtail specific things this president does because he's not their president. But they don't want to actually constrain the executive power because they're just rubbing their hands together, waiting for the time that their guy's in office when their guy can use those toys. So, as the old adage goes, pay not attention to what someone says. Keep your mind on what they do. What is Congress doing to constrain the executive if on either occasion of who's in the office they have complaints about the power of the executive? Well, if Congress is complaining, it's their job to make a difference, but they don't. So, anyway. While Barrett, 53, gave lukewarm praise to Sotomayor, 71, for focusing her dissent on conventional legal terrain like the Judiciary Act of 1789 and our cases on equity, unquote, she rounded on Jackson, 54, for adopting a, quote, startling line of attack that is tethered neither to those sources nor, frankly, to any doctrine whatsoever. Quote, waving away attention to the limits on judicial power as a mind-numbingly technical query, apparently that was a quote, she offers a vision of the judicial role that would make even the most ardent defender of judicial supremacy blush, Barrett wrote. Meanwhile, Jackson opted not to conclude her opinion with the common phrase, I dissent, or respectfully I dissent, in an apparent sign of her fury at her colleague's ruling. Quote, it's not something that we see every day, Republican Iowa Attorney General Brenna Byrd told the Post about Barrett's jabs, though Byrd stressed that Barrett confined her critique to legal differences rather than personal attacks. Well, I mean, they were kind of personal. She named Justice Jackson. Anyway, other commentators were more scathing. Quote, holy shit, this is about as brutal as I've ever seen SCOTUS be on one of their own, Attorney Costas Moros wrote on X in response to Barrett's imperial judiciary quote. Quote, translated, you are so stupid that you aren't even worth responding to, unquote. That's kind of how I read it. Quote, the fact that 6 justices were okay with signing on to an opinion where Justice Barrett took a personal shot at Justice Jackson is a very strong indication that Jackson has alienated her colleagues and there is a growing lack of respect for her work, unquote. Mused ex-user Shipwrecked Crew, whose profile describes him as a former federal prosecutor. Well, I'm glad you did all the research necessary to verify this guy's bona fides, New York Post. But either way, yes. Quote, justices circulate memos among with their legal views. Okay. Justices circulate memos among with their legal views on certain cases in order to bring others around to their thinking. Given what she has written in her dissent, imagine the memos that Jackson must have sent around in this case, unquote. Yeah. Do you think Justice Jackson wasn't, like, passing notes? I think probably. 3 lower courts had stayed Trump's January 20th executive order narrowing the definition of birthright citizenship, with the 14th Amendment, which the 14th Amendment states confers automatic naturalization on all individuals born in the U.S. after concluding the executive action was likely unconstitutional. The Supreme Court did not address the merits of Trump's order, only the power courts had to enjoin it. Yeah, we actually talked about this, my father, my mother, and I yesterday. And they were both of the opinion this law was written back in time for slaves, not for illegal immigrants. But of course, the devil is in the proverbial details. Did the law say specifically slaves? I don't know. So it's being debated. I guess time will tell. Advocates Diaboli, the problem is most of the powers they complain about are not the ones ceded to them, but the ones they were given by the Constitution. There's also that, or the gray areas, or, modern loopholes or whatever that are created that no one is either seen fit to tie off or clarify, and so that leaves a lot to interpretation. And whose job is it to interpret? The judges and the courts and so on and so forth. And then you get these things where it's like, oh, well, we never considered the possibility that someone would do this before. Well, now you have to, and either tie up the law or Congress has to take action to, refine the law. Let's see. Mr. Scott. Hi, moist tree rat. Well, of course. Let's see. K. Roberts. Madison is rolling in his grave at the power consolidators. Probably. I mean, you could probably, power an entire city with how many of the founders' graves are rolling right now. JPS, morning scribbles in chat. I'm going to watch this from the beginning. Well, good for you. When you catch up to this moment, you'll know I said hello. And K. Roberts, zombies hate zombies that don't eat brains. Sure. That's true. What about Turbotine? I can't say I'm familiar with Turbotine. But I'll take your word for it. Almost sounds like Ovaltine. Little Orphan Annie says, drink your Ovaltine. And lastly, Advocate Daily, the 14th Amendment was pretty clearly about slaves if you look at the accompanying documentation, not to mention the timing of it. Yeah, well, I mean, there is some reasoned precedent for extrapolating old laws into modern situations, but the question is, does that need to be clarified? Can they legally clarify it now after years and years of practice elsewise? What will happen? I don't know. I admittedly am not an expert on birthright citizenship. But, and of course, we're not the only country that has such a rule. It's not common, but it's not completely unheard of. I don't personally think that simply being born on this land should then confer to you citizenship if your parents are here illegally. If your parents are citizens of another country, then I think citizenship to your home country should apply. But you should still have to apply for citizenship in this country. I think that seems reasonable to me. That's always seemed reasonable to me. But yeah, automatic citizenship. But yeah, anyway, it's something that's been talked about for decades, and I'll be surprised if we have a definitive decision on it anytime in the near future. But you never know. Beyond that, one more story. This one the headline just caught me off guard, so I thought I'd bring it up because I was curious. It's also a very short article. Mexican drug cartel used hacker to track FBI official, then killed potential informants, government audit says. Now, let's just digest this for a second, shall we? I just want to digest this. Mexican drug cartel used hacker to track FBI official, then killed potential informants. I feel like this should be a bigger story. I mean, but let's find out. A Mexican drug cartel hired a hacker to surveil the movements of a senior FBI official in Mexico City in 2018 or earlier, gathering information from the city's camera system that allowed the cartel to kill potential FBI informants, the Justice Department Inspector General said in a new report. The hacker also was able to, quote, see calls made and received by the FBI official and their geolocation data in a major breach of operational security that occurred as the FBI was working on the case of former Sinaloa cartel boss Joaquin El Chapo Guzman Loera, the Inspector General said. This is some, enemy of the state Will Smith stuff right here. Good gravy. The hacker tracked people coming in and out of the U.S. Embassy in Mexico City before zeroing in on the FBI assistant's legal attaché, a role that works closely with Mexican law enforcement, the report said, citing an FBI case agent at the time. The report did not identify the hacker. Quote, according to the case agent, the cartel used information provided by the hacker to intimidate and, in some cases, kill potential sources or cooperating witnesses, unquote, says the Inspector General report, which was a broader review of the FBI's approach to protecting sensitive information and avoiding surveillance. These stunning new details offer a rare look at how technology can be exploited in the high-stakes battle between U.S. law enforcement and the violent Mexican cartels that control illicit drug trade. The Trump administration has made cracking down on cartels a national security priority, in part by declaring them as foreign terrorist groups. The FBI, DEA, and U.S. military have, in recent years, used advanced surveillance techniques to try to infiltrate Sinaloa and the Jalisco New Generation Cartel, the other big Mexican cartel that U.S. officials say smuggles large volumes of deadly fentanyl into the U.S. CNN reported in April that the CIA was reviewing its authorities to use lethal force against the cartels. Oh boy! It's the Cold War all over again, except in sunny Mexico. With El Chapo now behind bars, the cartels themselves are increasingly run by a younger generation of tech-savvy drug lords. Quote, "We've identified people in the cartels that specialize in cryptocurrency movements," a senior DEA official previously told CNN. Well, I already know what needs to happen. Jungle Strike. You guys remember Jungle Strike? Yeah, you go into a South American or southern U.S. type area with a a stealth bomber F-117, and you just bomb the drug labs, and with a helicopter with your Comanche. Man, that was a great game. Jungle Strike was great. Jungle Strike and Zombies Ate My Neighbors. Oh, and Syndicate. Oh man, Syndicate on Genesis. Oh, with your cyborg-laden enforcers running around doing missions and stuff. Oh, those were the days. Those were the days. Anyway, quote, "The cartels run a multi-billion-dollar global enterprise and utilize sophisticated technology to enhance their business operations." Derek Maltz, who until May served as the acting DEA administrator, told CNN. Quote, "They utilize state-of-the-art sophisticated surveillance techniques to identify law enforcement activities and their adversaries," unquote. The new Inspector General report raises broader concerns about the threat of high-tech surveillance to U.S. national security. Quote, "Some within the FBI and partner agencies, such as the Central Intelligence Agency, have described this threat as existential," the report said. I'd say so. If they were able to track your FBI associate and then zero in on everybody that they met with in an official capacity and then make a hit list out of that and then clean up house with it. Jeez Louise. There have been long-standing risks posed by ubiquitous technical surveillance, jargon for the widespread availability of data to adversaries to the FBI's criminal and national security cases, the report said. But recent advances in commercial technology, quote, "have made it easier than ever for less sophisticated nations and criminal enterprises to identify and exploit vulnerabilities," unquote, related to such surveillance, according to the report. The FBI is working on a, quote, "strategic plan," unquote, to address some of the Inspector General's concerns about the Bureau's approach to the threat. The Bureau referred questions about the Inspector General's report to the Justice Department. CNN has requested comment from the department. That is, I mean, on the one hand, I want to go, boy, that sounds like some sci-fi craziness from like some weird action movie. At the same time, it's like, it seems completely obvious, doesn't it? With as much data as is floating around on any given day about one person's likes, dislikes, associations, activity, movement, and on and on and on. It's inevitable. This kind of thing is just inevitable. I'm not sure how you turn it off. I'm not sure how you protect from that. Unless you equip every FBI agent and associate with some kind of masking technology for every device they carry on themselves and have a very strict regimen and mentality of not giving away your location. But if the guy was able to hack into, public use CCTV cameras. Man, okay. Well, there you go. What do you guys think about that? Howdy, neighbor. Well, hi, Luna. And hell yeah, Jungle Strike was fun. Jungle Strike was great. Desert Strike was all right. I mean, it wasn't bad at all, but Jungle Strike, I think that was peak. I think that was peak of the Strike series, personally. Zombies Ate My Neighbors was great. You know, there was one level I just played forever without winning because I just loved it for some reason. I'm a big fan, as many of you may have noticed in a couple of streams now where I've mentioned this. I'm a big fan of the Invasion of the Body Snatchers. And there's like, I think it's like level It's one of the early levels, like 5 or 6 or something, where it's you're fighting nothing but pod people. And when I was a kid, I just like loved having, the little pod people like come out of the ground and like chase me and stuff, and I'd take them down. I wouldn't want to leave the level. I was like, I'm fighting the pod people. I was a kid. What do you want? It's just a thing, Let's see. Oh my gosh. It's happened again. I see the avatar, but now the name that is there throws off my brain. And I don't remember who this is now. I know who it is, but I don't. My brain does not want to do it. I fell a bit behind because my phone needed to cool down. Okay. Ergo Tangooper Police. My brain wants to say Simon Willikins. Is it Simon Willikins? Please help me. Do I remember Manimal? Boy, howdy, do I remember Manimal. Turn into a panther and a hawk. And that actor whose name was it like Simon Barrett or something. Anyway, that actor ended up on a different show called Counter-Strike. Had nothing to do with the video game. It was out long before the video game. It was kind of a Mission Impossible knockoff. Remember Counter-Strike over on the USA Network? Had Christopher Plummer as sort of the Peter Graves role. Man, I'm thinking of all the old TV shows. JB says, "Oh, legit, I thought you were going to say vampires." No. Yeah, vampires for sure. I'm still working on that project, but no, pod people, man. Oh man, pod people. Jill Powers, that's why our Marines got sent to the border. Those cartels use drones. Yeah, the cartels have unlimited money. Unlimited money. I mean, they're not even effectively. They are running whole swaths of Mexico. It's insane. I mean, Mexico is just 2 steps away, if not already, from being effectively a cartel state. A criminal. The whole country is practically a criminal enterprise in some way, shape, or form. Ugh. So yeah, I don't know how you solve that problem. It's been allowed to metastasize for so long. I'm not sure how you fix it. Advocatus. So they just killed anyone who happened to come into contact with him. Sucks to be the attendant at the gas station you stopped at. Well, yeah, I know. It's like when you have unlimited funds and no consequences will befall you in a justice system and a law enforcement system in that country, which is so corrupt, either so corrupt or so, incapable of doing anything about the cartels. Better safe than sorry. Well, I mean, he talked to that guy over there. I guess we'll just take him out. Yeah. Airwolf. Jan Michael Vincent. And I want to say McHale from McHale's Navy. Because it was. Ernest Borgnine. Pardon me. It took me a second. Ernest Borgnine. Oh, Ernest Borgnine. I wonder if the video is out there. It probably is. It's from many, many years ago, and I won't give away what it's about. But Ernest Borgnine appeared on I think it was like a Fox and Friends segment. And if I'm remembering correctly, somebody asked him a question about how he stays so young or something like that. And his answer is one for the ages. If you can find that video clip, I won't give it away here, but if you can find that video clip, just prepare yourself. It is peak honesty and hilarity. It really is. Anything from anybody? Oh, holy cats. JB, thank you so much. The cartel members are also tuned up on drugs, etc., which makes them super dangerous. I saw a documentary about their hitmen. Shit was crazy. Yeah. There are probably better documentaries out there. There's a couple. Cocaine Cowboys. If you have not seen Cocaine Cowboys, There's 2 documentaries, 1 and 2. If you can find the original version of the first one, watch it. The second one dives into one particular character and situation. It's even worse. But the kind of savagery and brutality that I safely enjoy in reading like a book or reading a comic book or seeing in a movie or something, that feels so beyond that my civilized brain still thinks of it as kind of like a kind of a fiction. Yeah, they really do. There are no boundaries, no holds barred in defending the cartel, in getting yourself in a mindset where you can be a constant hitman for a ruthless drug enterprise. It's just, it baffles. It's disgusting, really, that this stuff actually happens. You feel safe in your own sense of civility and away from that stuff in a world where you don't have to face it directly. But man, when you finally hear those stories or see those pictures or videos, how do humans function at that level of barbarity? I can't comprehend it. It's sort of like trying to comprehend Oblivion. And I'm not talking about the video game, I'm talking about actual Oblivion. It's like trying to comprehend the absence of consciousness. You just can't quite do it. Your brain can't quite do it. And so thank you, JB. And Sherry Powers, are you sure as shingles screwed? Oh, and you sure are as shingles screwed if the feds catch you overstaying your visa. Horror stories, yet they allowed people not bordering us to use them as a turnstile. Yeah. Speaking of shingles, I had those when I was 20. Ugh. Terrible. I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. I'd rather they have to experience something, of their own volition. But anyway, guys, I'm going to call it here. About time for that. Those are the news stories that weren't necessarily headline stuff, aside from everything else going on. Aside from resolving wars or ongoing wars or other things. But we'll see what the news brings us in the days to come. Did you guys know that I have a Discord server? Well, I have a Discord server. If you didn't know, well, now you know, and knowing is half the battle. Link to the Discord server is in the chat right now. If you'd like to join the Discord server, click on that link. You'll find yourself on the landing channel called Say Hello. And in addition to saying hello, you just have to say the secret word. The secret word will tell me that you actually watch the stream, are not a bot, and have thus earned the right, the privilege, the entitlement to join the Discord server. And today's secret word is, of course, Automan. Just say hello, Automan, and I'll know that you watch the show. Outside of that, you can find me here tomorrow at 12:30 Pacific Time, 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time for DEI Death Watch. There'll be another episode of my little digest series covering the downfall and doubling down of diversity, equity, and inclusion. But before then, at 9:05 a.m. Pacific Time, noon 05 p.m. Eastern Time, over on Midnight's Edge, unless something comes up, and it is billing time tomorrow, so maybe, but I hope to be, as usual, a panelist on Midnight's Edge in the morning, where we will cover the box office over the weekend, movie news, and other things, and it'll be a good time for all. Also, before I forget, let me find this real quick. If you did not know, and I would understand if you didn't, because it was just posted before I started the show, my friend via Midnight's Edge, Paulie of Latino Slant, is doing a charity stream tomorrow. And what is this charity stream for? Well, it is for the Animal Rescue Fundraiser for SCARS. And SCARS means something that I don't know off the top of my head, but the link to that upcoming stream is now in the chat box. Click on that. Go set your reminders. All super chats that are given at that stream will go to the charity for the Animal Rescue Shelter. And, of course, there will be links there to donate directly if you'd like to do that as well. So put that on your calendar. I believe it starts at, 11 a.m. Pacific time, so that's 11 to 12, 12 to 1, 1 to 2. 2 p.m. Eastern time. So get ready for that. So it'll happen tomorrow just after Midnight's Edge in the morning, if I get my timing right there. So go check that out and donate if you are able, or at least spread around the links there too to help out the animals, all the puppers and the kitties and everything else. There you go. Everybody, thank you so much for joining me. Moderators, thank you for keeping an eye on things, even though everyone here is so well behaved. You have very, very little to do. Everybody who donated, either to myself or, guys, at the top of the chat box, the GoFundMes for our friends Twisted Skipster and Angel Arriaga. Thank you guys so much for your generosity and your consideration there as well. Hope you all have a good rest of your Sunday. For those of you that are dealing with month-end billing stuff tomorrow and on Tuesday, you have my sympathies. I'm right there with you. And elsewise, everybody, I hope you're all safe and well. If you're not well, please get well soon. And I'll see you on the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.